G'day. Headed out this morning for a quick trip to Sydney, and we'll be there one night, then driving down to Canberra, we'll be there a night, and then headed back the next day to Brizzy. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. The last time I was in Canberra was 1972. I suspect it's changed a little bit since then, and I'll be interested to see the changes. Anyway, come along and we'll get this next trip done, shall we? G'day, I'm Roland Hearn, and this is a walk in the garden. Well, I made it to Canberra, but it's raining cats and dogs, and there's not a great space to do this in, but I thought I would get a couple of pictures, and then I'm going to go and have a chat with a really good mate of mine that I told you about, and we'll try and find some cover that we can have that chat in. Let me just turn this around and I'll show you the old Parliament House. There it is, and then you swing around and there's the new one. I got into Sydney Friday night. It's been raining constantly, and so therefore I haven't been able to do a lot of filming, but anyway, we'll make it work. So before I go and have that chat, just want to drive up to a little lookout and give you an overview of Canberra fairly quickly. It's a beautiful city. There's lots of wonderful places to come and see in Canberra, particularly if you like history. There's the National War Memorial here, the National Mint is here, and of course, as you saw, Parliament House, and museums and lots of wonderful places to see. It's a very beautifully designed city, and lots of gardens and parks and lakes everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful. Canberra was created because neither Melbourne nor Sydney could concede the right to become the capital to the other city, and so after Australia was federated in 1901, they had a long argument on that very issue, and finally the Victorians conceded that the capital city could be in New South Wales, but it had to be at least 160 kilometres from from Sydney. So a couple of architects won a competition. Walter Burley Griffin and his wife Marion Mahoney Griffin won the competition, and after a lot of backwards and forwards, they set out to create the city. And work began in the early 1920s, and in 1927, Canberra started operating as the capital city of Australia. It is definitely worth coming and having a look, and I wish I could spend a whole lot more time here. But right now, I'm going to go and chat with this mate of mine, a wonderful friend, and I'm looking forward to introducing him to you. So while I'm here with my good friend Satish, that I'll introduce you to in a minute, I just wanted to reflect on where we've been, and been talking about applying those three things: love and worth, two sides of the same coin, and the search for meaning is a search for worth, and the last one was a struggle. The struggle with shame is a struggle with worthlessness, and I think I'm going to have a really interesting conversation with Satish here. By the way, it is freezing cold here in Canberra, the rain's stopped, hopefully for long enough for us to have this chat. So let me introduce you to Satish. Here's Satish.
Good morning, good morning.
Satish, thank you for bringing me up to Canberra. This was a great treat, and appreciate you taking the effort to drive up here with me.
Good to be here with you, Roland. It's really a pleasure to just be with you and enjoy the fellowship. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. It's a beautiful area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It'd be a lot nicer if it wasn't freezing and
No.
and raining, but that's good. So, Satish, how long have you been in Australia?
Well, I came to Australia in '94, so what's that? 27 years now.
Okay.
27 years.
So you've been here long enough to work out what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. I'm still learning.
So you would say there's plenty of differences between Australia and your homeland?
Oh, definitely. The cultures are different, and yeah, I come from a traditional Indian culture.
So whereabouts in India did you come from?
I was right in the center of India,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
What was the name of your hometown?
I come from a town called Chikli.
Chickley.
Yeah, but I was born in a Nazarene hospital not very far away from Chikli, a place called Washim.
Okay.
That's where we have Nazarene Hospital.
Okay.
And the nearest place I can tell you would be Mumbai.
Mumbai.
which is still like several hundred kilometers.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So it was a farming rural community that you're in?
Yeah. The town I grew up, it's a very small town. It was farming, rural kind of setting. Yeah.
Okay. So what were some of the first things that struck you when you moved to Australia as different between Australia and your hometown?
There's a lot to be said. Yeah.
Well, then you can just put in a few sentences, right?
Yeah, the culture is certainly different. Australia's predominantly Western culture, and where I come from, it's Asian culture, and so there are a lot of differences.
Let's talk about the things then that might relate to the topic of conversation, because I guess we haven't got a lot of time to do this. But so one of the things that I've tried to say to people through this process, the walk in the garden, is that life is this search for meaning, and search for meaning is a search for love, and that we all as humanity struggle with a sense of worthlessness, and that is best defined by what we call shame. And for us as in a Western culture, shame is a very individual thing, but traditional cultures and cultures that have been around for a long time tend to enshrine shame as a cultural dynamic and a way of just being in community. That shame, that you experience shame just by not doing things that affirm the community. Would that be a fair comment?
Where I come from, shame is a communal thing, it's individual but plus communal.
Right.
And so if I do terribly wrong, that will not only bring shame on myself, but my family and my community as well, and then the circle can get wider,
Right.
depending on where you are. But the shame is the shame caused by one person can put the whole community into shame.
Right. Okay. So the activities of one person impacts the whole community, the family and extended family. Like one of the stories that you've told me in the past is that dating is a very different thing where you're from than what it is here in Australia.
Yeah. And I'm mainly talking about the culture I come from.
Right.
India is such a big
Big
country.
play, lots of
Yeah.
different perspectives, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, dating, you can't, especially in small places, you can't just go out with a girl, or
Right.
that will bring shame on the girl's family and even the boy's family.
Just going
So,
out would do that.
yeah, just going out, or even where I come from, and growing up, you couldn't even talk with the girls,
Right.
in school or in public places, because that was really taken the wrong way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we've come to the end of the road here, so we might turn and walk back. So I guess that's significant because marital relationships are very important to the stability of the family and the community.
Yes.
And so guarding how people come to the place of being in lifelong relationships, I guess, is the idea behind that, right?
Yeah.
But it's so enculturated that people aren't thinking necessarily of the mechanism. It is just that if you do this activity, date a girl or a girl dating a boy, that brings shame on the family.
Yes. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what would happen in that kind of a situation?
Yeah. Again, it depends on where you are.
Uh-huh.
They probably, the family will intervene. The family will oppose that. The family will try to separate those guys.
Right. Okay.
Or the family will restrict the girls going in and out.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
she won't be allowed to go out of the house.
Right.
Be kept away. Sometimes violence is involved.
Right. Okay.
If the girl has strong brothers,
Right.
they will beat him up.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's
So there is violence
so there's
involved.
definitely a response required
Oh,
to
yeah.
this shame experience.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a violence. Usually there is violence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
From both sides.
Right.
The girl will get beaten up at home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I mean that is very different from how things would happen here in Australia.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's way different. Yeah.
Right.
Probably that you were asking me about what's different here. That's one of the big different.
Right.
differences,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's right.
Yeah.
Now, that's interesting as a difference between Australia and India, and certainly illustrates the point that we're talking about. There's no comment here about which way is better or worse, because obviously there's can be problems in whatever way you go about life. But I guess the issue that is most important to what I'm trying to do in the walk in the garden is recognizing that shame is such a real experience in humanity, that in these older cultures, like Indian culture, Australia is such a young culture, it's a very Western culture. The whole Western culture has been working towards this individualized culture, whereas older cultures are much more community oriented. So in that process, shame has become very much a part of the way people relate to each other. But the impact of that shame upon the individual is typically experienced probably very much the same way.
Yeah, I think so.
So while a person here wouldn't necessarily worry about bringing shame on their family, the experience of shame personally is something that we can end up carrying with us through life, and struggle with life as we go on, for sure.
Yeah, I think because we are human beings,
Right.
and the human needs and feelings are probably the same everywhere.
Right.
And so shame, I think, is, I can say, universal.
Yeah. Sure.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. I'm sure that's right. So it's just very fascinating to me
Yeah.
to be able to see or talk with someone who comes from one of those cultures where shame is interwoven into the way people relate to each other.
Yeah.
So do you find people that are genuinely trying to respond to those that have been hurt by that process? Is that ever a consideration? How we restore people after they've experienced shame?
Uh, I don't think much is done.
Uh-huh.
There's not sufficiently done. Where I come from, in India, we don't have counseling.
Right,
Things
okay.
like that. So people internalize those things and probably live with those things for the rest of their lives.
Right, right.
Whereas here, maybe counseling is available, and but I think still, it also depends on individuals. If they don't open up, then
Right,
they're not going to get any help.
right, right. And that's true here
Yeah.
or there. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And going back to your question, as far as I'm concerned, not much is being done.
Right,
in the area.
right. Okay, right.
I mean, people get help, but really, it's not really widely spoken or
Right.
widely acknowledged.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I have tried to say through this process is the idea that love, and ultimately the love of God, restores our sense of dignity and worth and honour.
Yes.
But it's not until you recognise that that struggle, and as you say, come open to it, that love can effectively work in that environment. Is there any potential for seeing that to be true within the context that you come from?
I think so, yeah. Because, where I come from, the religious life is a bit different. And where, when you are experiencing something like this, you can easily feel that even the gods of heaven are not on your side.
Right.
And so therefore you are really condemned from every side.
Right.
Family, community, your God,
Right.
whatever you worship,
Right.
And so it might be a revolutionary thing if someone gets hold of the love of God.
Right.
I have a God who's a loving God.
Right.
And who loves me regardless,
Right.
of who I am and what I have done.
That's amazing, Satish.
Yeah.
Because I think that you're actually hitting on a very important point there, because even in our Western culture, we have actually framed God for a lot of people as a very judgmental, demanding being, whereas to fully understand God and who God is to see God as love and embracing and healing of that very struggle. And so while my context and perspective of trying to work through these issues is very much from my Australian heritage and Australian perspective, I think that the struggle is genuinely universal, and therefore the love of God is genuinely a response to humanity, no matter where we are. Yeah. Well, Satish, this has been actually a wonderful walk. I'm glad the rain held off. I hope that the sound has been okay. I haven't had a chance to set up mics in this little walk because of the setting. So I hope the sound has been all right. But I'm going to trust it has been. But Satish, thanks for walking with me in the garden. And it was a good chat. So I appreciate you very much, Satish, and all you do. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
And I hope that you keep walking in your garden until we meet again. Talk to you later.